A farmer in Arkansas just said something that should terrify every American. We had record yields in 2024, and farmers still lost money. You can't yield your way into profitability this year. Think about that for a second. Record harvest, best corn yields Arkansas has seen in over a decade, and farmers are going bankrupt anyway. But here's what nobody in Washington wants you to know. Corn prices just crashed to $4.16 per bushel, the lowest level since 2020, and Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders is watching Arkansas agriculture implode in real time. Her emergency meetings with USDA officials, her desperate tax relief measures, her public warnings about mass farm failures, they all point to one devastating reality. This isn't a bad year. This is the beginning of the worst agricultural extinction event since the Great Depression. So what's really killing Arkansas corn farmers right now? Why are University of Arkansas economists projecting $274 in losses per acre? And if you think this only affects farmers, wait until you hear how empty corn silos in Arkansas will send shockwaves through your grocery bill and the entire food supply chain. Let me show you numbers that prove this isn't just another farming downturn. Corn prices peaked at $7.38 per bushel in June 2022. That was the golden era when farmers could actually make money. Fast forward to September 2024 and prices collapsed to $4.16. That's a 44% crash in just over 2 years. But the real devastation shows up in the acreage data. Arkansas farmers planted 490,000 acres of corn in 2024. That's a 31% crash from the previous year. 31%! Farmers looked at corn economics and said no thanks in record numbers. 11 states, including Arkansas, saw corn acreage decrease more than 10%. Mississippi, Louisiana, and New Mexico also crashed over 30%. This isn't isolated to Arkansas. This is a regional agricultural collapse spreading across the South. Here's where the math becomes absolutely brutal for corn growers. University of Arkansas economists Hunter Byram, Ryan Loy, and Scott Stiles just released their analysis, and it's a horror show. Arkansas corn farmers are projected to lose $273.71 per acre in 2025. Let that sink in. Every single acre of corn you plant costs you almost $300. If you farm 500 acres of corn, you're hemorrhaging over $136,000 just to grow a crop that the market doesn't value enough to cover your costs. The analysis factored in expected yield, expected price, expected revenues, operating costs, and rent. No matter how they ran the numbers, corn farmers lose badly. But wait, you might be thinking, didn't Arkansas have record yields? Yes, and that's what makes this crisis so insane. Arkansas corn yields hit 186 bushels per acre in 2024. That's just 1 bushel off the all-time record set in 2014. The state is projected to produce more than 90 million bushels of corn. Record production. Farmers did everything right. Perfect weather, timely rains that reduced irrigation needs, early planting in northeastern Arkansas that avoided the heavy spring floods. Everything went according to plan on the production side, and farmers still lost massive money. Deke Fields, Vice President of Agriculture for the University of Arkansas system, told the Board of Trustees something chilling. The agricultural economy right now is probably in one of the most depressing states that I've seen in my career. No matter what the yields, the prices are so low and expenses so high. We had record yields in 2024, and farmers still lost money. You can't yield your way into profitability this year. Governor Sanders knows exactly how catastrophic this situation is. In meetings with U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins, Sanders hasn't minced words. She's called it the worst agricultural crisis since the 1980s. But Rollins went even further, calling it the worst conditions farmers have faced in almost a century. Almost a century. That means we're talking Great Depression-level farm crisis unfolding right now in America's heartland. And the political pressure on Sanders is mounting from every direction. Over 400 farmers packed an emergency meeting in Brooklyn on September 2, 2025. 400! These farmers left their fields during peak harvest season because the crisis is that urgent. They drove 3 hours each way, abandoned their combines in the middle of corn harvest, and showed up to beg congressional staffers for emergency aid. One farmer said plainly, "We have to have ad hoc payments right now to make it through this year. Until emergency funding arrives, farmers have no one to turn to but God." Here's what's actually killing Arkansas corn farmers and why Sanders can't fix it alone. Corn takes massive input costs to grow. Fertilizer, specialized seed, heavy machinery, irrigation systems, more expense than soybeans or rice. When corn prices were high, those inputs made sense. You spent big but earned bigger. Now corn prices are back to 2020 levels, but input costs are still at 2022 peaks. Fertilizers have trended higher all year. Phosphates are at record affordability lows for U.S. farmers. Seed prices are up 25% since 2020. Labor expenses hit a record $413 million in Arkansas agriculture in 2025. Every cost went up. Corn prices went down. The gap is unsustainable. Jason Kelly, Extension Wheat and Feed Grains agronomist for the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture, explained the death spiral perfectly. Corn takes quite a bit of money to tie up and grow. Lots of input costs with fertilizer and seed compared to soybeans. With the lower prices, soybeans or other crops look more attractive in 2024. So farmers abandoned corn. Acreage crashed. But here's the problem. When millions of acres across the South shift out of corn into soybeans, you just created a soybean oversupply problem for next year. The crisis spreads. Scott Stiles, Division of Agriculture economist, sees the bigger picture. We expect to see a record corn crop in the U.S. this fall. In addition, there was record corn, cotton, rice, and soybean production in South America this year. This is another factor pressuring the 2025 and 2026 price outlook. Global oversupply. American farmers can't compete with Brazilian and Argentinian corn flooding into China. And with Trump's tariffs making U.S. exports more expensive, China simply stopped buying American corn and shifted entirely to South America. The really terrifying part, this is year 3 of consecutive losses. Crop prices have declined 27% since 2022. 3 straight years of falling revenue while costs climb. Farmers don't have equity left. They've burned through savings from the good years. They've maxed out operating loans. They're out of options. Paul McAnally, market president for Southern Bancorp in Truman, Arkansas, started posting 2025 crop budgets in August. His assessment was blunt. "I've said 2025 marks the first year in 25 years of crop financing where no workable budget exists for row crops." 25 years of agricultural lending, and he's never seen anything this bad. A lot of people utilized all of the equity they had to stay in business. Others still have a little equity, but there's not enough equity out there for all of the farmers that are in business today to right the ship. Agriculture leaders are now warning openly that 1 in 3 Arkansas farms could shut down permanently by spring 2026 if nothing changes. Agriculture industry leaders told lawmakers that 25 to 40% of farmers are likely to leave the industry after this season unless they receive aid. When 25 to nearly half of your farmers are on the verge of shutting down, you're not facing a market correction. You're facing an extinction event. The Arkansas Farm Bureau noticed the crisis was so severe that bankruptcy lawyers started putting up billboards next to rice mills and corn elevators. A North Little Rock law firm placed ads in the shadow of a rice land facility in Lono County, targeting desperate farmers with Chapter 12 bankruptcy services. That image should haunt every policymaker. Bankruptcy lawyers advertising to farmers right where they deliver their harvest. That's how bad this has gotten. Bankruptcy filings doubled in the first quarter of 2025 compared to 2024, jumping from 45 Chapter 12 filings to 88. Arkansas now accounts for over 26% of all farm bankruptcy filings in the entire 8th U.S. District Court. Back in 2021, when pandemic aid and strong commodity prices provided relief, Arkansas represented just 5% of district filings. By 2024, Arkansas exploded to over 30%. And Chapter 12 bankruptcies, where farmers try to reorganize and save operations, only tell half the story. With more than 60 farm auctions across Arkansas since December, there are plenty of Chapter 7 liquidations where entire farm operations are sold off piece by piece. Equipment that's been in families for decades, land farmed for generations, all gone. Sanders signed Act 696 to provide income tax exemptions for farmers receiving federal disaster payments. Arkansas farmers will receive approximately $286 million through the Emergency Commodity Assistance Program to offset losses. Sanders is sacrificing state tax revenue, about $9.9 million in fiscal 2025 and $15.8 million in fiscal 2026, trying to keep farmers afloat. But it's not nearly enough. The downstream effects are already devastating rural Arkansas economies. Tractor sales are down 13% year over year. Combine sales have crashed 48%. Farmers aren't buying equipment. They're not investing. They're in pure survival mode. And there's a ripple effect hitting input suppliers, equipment dealers, seed companies, fertilizer distributors, grain elevators, trucking companies, every business that serves agriculture. When farmers stop spending, entire rural economies collapse. Ronnie Cross, a Yell County row crop farmer, attended a winter production meeting in Morrilton. When asked how 2024 treated his operation, he sighed. Input costs were up too, of course, but that seems to be the trend. So it was pretty much a break-even year, and we call that a good year. Think about that statement. Breaking even is now considered a victory in Arkansas agriculture. Farmers work sunrise to sunset, risk everything they own, manage thousands of acres, and hope to break even. That's not an industry, that's a death march. Arkansas net farm income is projected to decline 8% to $2.91 billion in 2025. That's down from $3.17 billion in 2024. Crop receipts will decline by $620 million, reflecting lower planted acres caused by spring flooding and terrible economics. The fall 2025 farm income outlook projects another decrease in crop receipts for 2026. There will likely be reductions in rice and cotton acreage, with acreage shifting more into corn and soybeans based on more favorable margins, Byram explained. All crop margins are still negative for 2026 according to our crop enterprise budgets, but soybeans and corn appear to show the lowest likely loss. Translation: next year looks bad too. Farmers are choosing which crop to plant based on which one loses the least money. Here's what separates this crisis from normal agricultural cycles. Corn prices farmers receive today are at 2020 levels, but everything they need to grow corn, fertilizer, seed, fuel, labor, equipment, is still priced at 2022 peaks. When crop prices rose during the pandemic, input costs increased right alongside them. But when crop prices crashed back down, input costs stayed elevated. The purchasing power of the crop dollar has collapsed. University of Arkansas economists analyzed monthly crop price indices going back to 2011. The widening gap between crop prices and input costs is unprecedented in modern agriculture. Jason Kelly explained it simply. Just like everyone else's everyday expenses, from insurance to groceries, have gone up, farmers are in the same boat. Insurance, fuel, oil, labor, all the inputs have gone up drastically in the last 5 years. And while crop prices growers receive for grain is pretty flat, 4 and something for corn, we were getting that 10 years ago. 10 years ago, that wasn't too bad. Today, it's really not enough. Trade policy made everything worse. About 70% of commodities exported from Brazil go to China. During Trump's first administration, when soybean tariffs were levied on China, the Chinese didn't negotiate. They successfully redirected efforts to Brazil and other developing countries. Now, American corn farmers are competing against Brazilian producers backed by Chinese investment, lower production costs, and no tariff barriers. Arkansas farmers can't win that fight. The trade deficit hit $47 billion. Tariffs curtailed export markets and increased prices for fertilizer and farm machinery. Farmers got squeezed from both directions. Lost revenue on exports, higher costs on inputs. And corporate consolidation crushed farmers' negotiating power. When the top 4 competitors in any sector control more than 40% of the market, abuses become likely. That's where seed, fertilizer, and equipment markets are today. Farmers are price takers, not price makers. When Monsanto, Corteva, and other ag giants raise seed prices, farmers have no choice but to pay or stop farming. When crop prices fall, farmers absorb every dollar of loss. So what should happen next? Sanders has been petitioning USDA for farm aid and meeting directly with Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins. She's called farmers the backbone of Arkansas's economy and culture. She said farming is more than just a business. It's the state's way of life, its culture and history, what knits communities together. Sanders understands that if Arkansas farmers disappear, something critical to the spirit of the state disappears with them. Congress passed the One Big Beautiful Bill with farm relief provisions. It updated reference prices for the Price Loss Coverage Program to make up for low commodity prices. But agricultural leaders warn it's not enough to cover losses farmers face in 2025. The Price Loss Coverage Program was developed as part of FDR's New Deal in 1933 to guarantee farmers a price floor. But in 2024, farmers were only reimbursed when commodity prices dipped below prices from 12 years ago. The safety net failed to keep pace with reality. Deputy Agriculture Secretary Stephen Vaden suggested the Trump administration is exploring a bridge program to help producers through 2025 and 2026 until higher safety net programs kick in. Senators John Boozman and Tom Cotton, along with Congressman Rick Crawford, issued statements recognizing the challenges but highlighted $80 billion in assistance Congress passed. But farmers need emergency assistance now, not promises for next year. They need it before spring planting season, when they make decisions about whether to put another crop in the ground and incur more debt, or walk away from farming forever. Arkansas Legislative Council passed a resolution urging President Trump to implement targeted relief for Arkansas farmers in 2025. It's a recommendation, not policy. State lawmakers are begging the federal government to act because they know state resources can't solve a crisis of this magnitude. Here's what you need to understand if you're not a farmer. Agriculture is the foundation of the entire food supply chain. When corn farmers start failing at this rate, food prices spike. Meat production costs increase because corn is the primary feed for livestock. Ethanol supplies tighten. Food availability declines. Rural communities built around agriculture for a century watch their economic foundation crumble. Schools close, businesses fail, towns die. And the consolidation already hurting farmers accelerates as large agribusiness corporations buy up failed family farms at auction prices. The diversity and resilience of American agriculture gets replaced by industrial monoculture controlled by a handful of massive corporations. Sanders sees all this. She grew up understanding farming. She knows what's at stake. Her panic is absolutely justified because Arkansas is the canary in the coal mine for American agriculture. Dr. Ryan Loy, agricultural economist, warns that bankruptcy numbers are likely understated. Any numbers being reported are probably worse than what I can discuss right now. Chapter 12 bankruptcy is a process that takes time. Farmers struggling now won't show up in data until next quarter. The wave is just beginning. What we see in statistics today represents financial distress that began months ago. The farmers hitting crisis point right now won't appear in bankruptcy filings until 2026. And when 1 in 3 Arkansas farms shut down, the ripple effects will devastate the state. Rural towns become ghost towns, schools close, businesses fail. The culture that defined Arkansas for generations fundamentally changes. This isn't a bad year. This is year 3 of consecutive losses with no relief in sight. Farmers have burned through equity, they've maxed credit, they're out of options. Corn prices at $4.16 won't cover costs. Next year's outlook projects more losses. The treadmill keeps running while farmers fall off one by one. Governor Sanders is right to panic. The worst agricultural crisis in a century is unfolding in real time. Arkansas corn farmers are running out of time, options, and hope. The question now is whether federal action comes fast enough to save an industry that feeds America, or whether we're about to watch the extinction of family farming as we've known it for generations. Because when Arkansas cornfields go silent, when combines sit idle because the economics don't work anymore, the consequences ripple far beyond state lines. This is how food systems collapse. Not with dramatic crashes, but with slow bleeding until the math just doesn't work anymore and farmers walk away. Arkansas corn prices just hit their lowest level in years, and Governor Sanders is watching helplessly as the industry that built her state disappear, acre by acre, farm by farm, family by family.